All right, welcome back. So at this point, you should have watched a couple short videos on YouTube and answered a few questions about presidential and parliamentary democracy. I want to spend just a couple minutes talking about three main differences that sometimes are confusing. The first is patriotism. So because in England, they have a prime minister who actually runs the day-to-day functions of government, and they have a queen who is the symbol or the face of their country, English people tend to be able to be patriotic and still hate their government. Because you're hating the prime minister who's running the government, but you can still love the queen, the symbol of your country. But that's very difficult for Americans because currently President Trump is our chief executive, so he runs the government, but he's also the symbol of our country. And so as Americans, we struggle to be able to separate the two. And if you hate the government, you tend to oftentimes be less patriotic. So that's the first difference. All right, second difference, election. So we just had a primary election here in the United States, and some of your classmates went and voted. And they actually saw the name of candidates they wanted to choose and potentially elect. But in England, you never get to go and vote and see a prime minister's name on a ballot. Instead, the prime minister is the leader of the majority party in parliament. And so when you go and vote for a representative to serve in parliament, you know that if that person's party becomes the majority, then that party's leader will be the prime minister. So you still vote for prime minister, but you do so in an indirect manner, as opposed to in the United States, you get to vote directly for who will be the chief executive, the president of the country. Okay, and finally, third major difference. How can you get them out of office? So we experienced this part in America just the last few months. We impeached, or we accused officially of wrongdoing, President Trump. And that was done by the House of Representatives. But then the Senate voted that, in fact, he wasn't guilty of those charges. And so he remained in office. But that would be the process to get rid of a president. In England, for instance, in a parliamentary democracy, you would get rid of a prime minister by having him suggest a law and it not passing, which makes sense because if he is the leader of the majority party, if he suggests a law, it should follow that it would pass because he's in charge of the majority. So if he suggests a law and it fails, then it means that some members of his party voted against him. And that would then signal that there needs to be a new election. And almost certainly, his party would not choose him to be the leader of their party any longer. And so he would be kicked out of office. So again, those are the three ways that the two systems differ. The ability to be more patriotic in a parliamentary democracy, the ability to vote directly for your executive in a presidential democracy, and then how can you get your leader out of office. Again, ultimately though, the people, the voters, have the final say in both systems. There's just different ways to select those leaders and different ways to keep them accountable. All right, hopefully that made sense. Again, if you've got questions, let me know. YouTube and Google are great resources too if you still are not sure on some of these facts. But yeah, tomorrow we will move on and have a few more key terms and then begin to dive into the history behind our democracy and how it got formed.